was sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh, bye.
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York, giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High King of the universe for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Thanking this great and mighty King for waking us up all this morning, allowing me to return safely from my trip with my family as we went away. Thanking the Creator for a safe arrival and a safe return. And also thanking the Creator for all of my family that I went to visit, and pray that the Creator be with them all. So we're back after 2 weeks not coming with a new show, but this is actually a new show, and thank God for this opportunity to be able to come back and also talk and expound on his words once again. So without any further ado, we're going to get into the portion of Chayei. And for that, I'll pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great. And it's good to be back. So I can address some of the questions. I'd like to apologize for the people I never got a chance to address the questions, but I'll try my best this time. It wasn't that many anyway, but I appreciate the ones that was given. First of all, let's say, giving praise to the Supreme Intelligence of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. And due respect to the platform on the D.C.B channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yariel Ben Saska, to the host Chief Uzael, who had a wondrous trip on outside, and coming back and give his children a great experience. And to the also reaching out and acknowledging Prince's Chief, brothers and sisters, Rabbinate, Kohanim, Maureen, and visitors to the channel. I greet you all in the time of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem and early Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to say, Adonai Septai Titakupi Agiti Atheaka, O Lord, down my lips, and my mouth should declare that praise. I usually try to focus on a different aspect of every sidra, even though a lot of times we're going to have to talk about this pretty much a lot of the same points. But I like to focus on different areas of various points sometimes that I haven't gotten to, but maybe in your various congregations you have gotten to. And since I'd like to address one question a brother had asked a while back. I seen the question, but I wasn't able to address it at that time. So, and I appreciate the question. And if I recall correctly, it was a reference to the tetragrammaton. When did did Abraham ever know the tetragrammaton? And in fact, he did know the Creator by a name, and I would say that name had to be the tetragrammaton itself, in the sense that he was called. And normally, you think Moses would be the first one to ask who's calling, but I would acknowledge, who was calling. And then the name of the Creator was never a mystery in the earth. It wasn't wide known in the earth. And that's one of the things we got to realize, because even from the first man, Adam had to know who he's talking to. Imakawa, and even the one that had a problem, Chayei, had to know who he's talking to. But we find that when he left out the first encounter, that when he came and the Creator told him about the land that he's going to give to his seed, he built an altar to it in the 17th chapter, around the 8th verse. So you'll find that he called upon the name of God there. Only later, after the covenant of Berit Milah, that you find that the Creator addressed himself by the name El Shaddai. Which is, and that's why he told Moses later on that he was known by the name of El Shaddai to the patriots. And that I explained it in one of my past videos that Shaddai also has a similar meaning to Shaddai, some similar, same root, which means like breast or nourishing. So he's going to sustain the patriots throughout their journey, nourishing them, supplying them. And this is interesting in the sense that it brings back to the first beginning of the call, Lech Lecha. So I'm just going to highlight a few things. I'm going to try to go back from Lech Lecha a little bit, point out a few things I find that be worth noting going forward in this travels or journeys of our patriots. So as we look in the 12th, and just in case, which I know I probably won't finish the whole thing, Chayei Sarah, which means the life of Sarah, which starts from the 23rd chapter of Genesis, and it goes all the way to the 25th chapter and ends at the 18th verse. So that's the whole portion of Chayei Sarah. But I'd like to bring out a couple of points in Lech Lecha. One of the things we know that's for the patriarch Abraham name was changed to Abram. And it says, now in the 12th chapter, first verse, now the Lord said unto Abram, get thee out of that country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto the land that I will show thee. And I'll make of thee a great nation, and I'll bless thee, and I'll make thy name great, and be thou a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and I'll curse him that I'll curse him that curses thee, will I curse. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So when he went, we know he left at 75, next verse. I'm just going to read the whole thing. I just want to bring out a point that most of us might not pay attention is get out of your country. And then after that, your kindred, from your relatives, get away from them, and your father's house. All that is done in the reverse order. First, a man leaves his father's house. Then, if you're going to go further, he'll leave all the relatives behind that he's related to. And then to go further, then he leaves the country. You can't leave the country first without leaving your parents and relatives first. So it's a build-up for the trial and the journey that our father Abraham is getting ready to take. Is that the build-up is, I'm going to say it, bring it to you in a soft fashion. Leave the country. All right. Not too bad. I might want to see what other places look like. Leave your kindred. Okay, I don't get along with everybody in the family. Leave your father's house. And wow, that's the individuals that raised me. My mother and my father raised me. This journey, had it been said in another way, it would have been really a devastating effect on a human psyche. So it cut loose my father and my mother, my parents. These days, it's a little easier, but I'm saying back then, it was a different mindset. So that let you know that the Creator showing Abraham that I realize what I'm asking of you to do. And I know that your journey is normally not a normal, easy journey. Therefore, I'm going to set things in place where this journey is going to be easier for you and be a blessing. Everything that a person that travels nomadically is something that what God bless Abraham with, that a person that is traveling, passing through, never hardly ever gets. All those things: fame, fortune, camaraderie, be a blessing, all those things that he had, and still maintain your family and your worth and your identity. This is something that a normal nomad doesn't maintain and gather collectively all together at once. So we can appreciate what God has said to Abraham, and this is a unique thing for him to do, and be a blessing to all people. Our journey, our travel, our existence, saying, Abraham, your existence is not just for you, even though you're going to have all this stuff. Your existence is for other people. So as an Israelite, descendant of Abraham, our existence is not only as a servant of God, but to serve God is to be out in the world trying to win friends and influence people to a better way of life and a better lifestyle. So that's the opening. I want to show you how hard the journey. Now, address the second question that I didn't get a chance to ask from my brother. Yeah, I think he had a two-part question, if I remember. J. Don, very brilliant young man. And he always pick out some real unique questions that I'm sure that not only him, but other people have, and I know they had in the past, because I've been a topic of discussions quite a bit around my circles, even contemporarily when I was in New York. So, one, when he goes in the land, we read about the first famine. Now, here's a man that's supposed to be well gifted, and he leave with a nephew Lot. That's one thing. I'm gonna get back to in a minute before going to Chayei Sarah. But he leaves with his nephew Lot, and one of the things was the kindred. Lot's a kindred. Now, how you look at Lot? You look at him as your son, your heir. We get the information that Abraham is 75 years old at the time when he first started off on this journey. And Lot, his brother's son, went with him. Now, Lot is not an adolescent. So, and we know he's not an adolescent from basically information that is given in the time frame of him coming with Abraham at the time, and going down to Egypt and coming back and having a lot of merchandising people. So I don't know how old was Lot when he accompanied Abraham, but Abraham was actually Lot's uncle, and Lot's father had died. And so we find out about Lot, interesting enough, before we find out about Sarah, Abraham's wife / sister wife later. So we find out about her after we find out about Lot. That's an interesting thing to consider as we're going through the period. Why focus on Lot first? And that side, shouldn't we talk about Mother Sarah? And so as we come forward, moving beyond, then we look at the situation that during the famine, it was said it was sore. Famine was sore in the land. And Abram went down to Egypt. So he knew the dangers he faced. So he faced a danger for his life in Egypt, but did he necessarily face a danger for his life staying in the land with the famine? Obviously, he didn't face the danger for his life in any respects, in any regard, because part of the blessing was, though him that will curse you, I will curse. So God's the one that allowed things to happen. So therefore, why did Abraham go down? He stuck it out for a moment. And it said the famine was sore in the land, but was it sore upon him? That's the question we need to ask. And it got to explore, which I don't have time to do in this particular setting, but just some things that you might want to talk with your teachers about. Was it really affecting him that bad that he decided to go? Or since he's referred to as a Hebrew, the other people look at him as being a problem of this condition as soon as he entered into the land. And we don't read anywhere where God told him to go down into Egypt. And we know he put his wife in jeopardy, lost integrity, and he recognized, we read where he recognized that how fine she looked. Here's a woman that's 65 years old. He recognized now how fine she looked. When do a man stop telling his significant other or his wife how beautiful she looked? It should be how much you should appreciate it. It should be regular. If she fix your food, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you. She got dressed to go out with you. You're looking beautiful. I appreciate that what God blessed me with. So those appreciations, we tend to let it die out over a period of time. And that brings well, as we're going to go into another episode later on. But one of the things is that we should always tell our significant other, a wife, a spouse, that how much they mean to us, how beautiful they are, and how blessed we are to be privileged, and by the all highest. So these are some things we should learn. But in going to the midst of a danger, I want to point out that this way we find that he mentions her. And yet, like I said, we mentioned Lot first. Now, so I would say the question was, it was a lack of faith. I would say it seemed to be a lack of faith in that period of time, but God still worked and saved them out of condition and saved the integrity of our mother Sarah and brought them back. And it didn't say how long the famine lasts, but if he goes into Egypt, he's not going to be there that long for a season to go through before he come back into the land, because God plagues Pharaoh's house and he had an armed escort to get up out of Egypt. All right. So now, can you imagine that Abraham is being told to travel a certain way, and did God show him to go to Egypt? We don't read that anywhere. So this is what we know that he elected to do. All right. The next question that I want to address that the brother brought was that he believed Sarah was pregnant after Abimelech took her. Now I'm just going to address the questions because I might forget them later. And when we read, as we get, when we went to YAH, the only time the Creator appeared without Abraham doing anything for him, God just shows up in no message, along with no message. The Creator appeared before people, but uses a message. But here it is, the Creator appeared before Abraham with no message at the time. And then we had these three, which we find out later on, angels, but it says men that stood at the tent, the door tent in the heat of the day. But this is after the covenant of the Brit Milah. And I just want to express those particular things there and to answer those questions. Not necessarily in the order. I'm going to touch on a couple of subject matters. But if that Abraham was told in this time next year, in the period of time of life, that's, he'd be back and that Sarah would have a son. So Isaac, and you figure the son of the covenant, Abraham is 99 when he gets circumcised. We know when Isaac is born, he's 100 years old. So therefore, as soon as he's healed, Sarah started to go through her changes then. But as soon as he's healed of the circumcision, when you think our father, Abraham, whose name was changed at that time, and his wife Sarah, we go back to work. And we understand what we mean when we go back to work. So that'd be immediate. And he won't have to work as hard as he had for 80, whatever the years, they've been together. If you got married at 15, if she got married at 18, she got married at 20. And right now she's 89. Then at 90 years old, and she's going to have this child. He wouldn't have to work as hard because the Creator already left word that she would have the son the following year. So I would say the pregnation is immediate, if not sooner, in order for Abraham to move about and get about. Now, when Abimelech take her, and I said, that's why I said she's all a pregnant woman, but maybe she might not show as much at the time. We don't know what point in time that Abimelech had gotten her, but he gotten her at the time that she would be carrying our forefather Isaac. So that's my answer to Brother John, J. Don. So let me move forward. I want to bring out a couple other points in the past surgery. And when we get to we know in the first journey, I'm going to skip all the way to last week's sidra. Let's skip a few sidras back. In YAH, which I find very interesting. And YAH is one, and that's just before the sidra I'm getting ready to go into now. And one of the things I find interesting within it, amongst all other stuff, is Abraham's plea for Sodom. And I'm just going to read this here and then let you further discuss the points that that's being stated here. All right, so let me see. Let me skip on down. I'll start at the 16th verse of the 18th chapter, just a little bit. And it says, and the men arose up from thence and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on their way. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham that which I am doing, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him to the end that he may command his children and his household after him, that they may keep the way of the Lord, to do righteousness and justice, to the end that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of him. So he said, righteousness and justice. This is what the Creator state first, before he get into the conversation with Abraham. And then the 20th verse, and the Lord said, verily, the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and verily, their sin is exceedingly grievous. I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come up unto me. And if not, I will know. And the men turned from thence and went toward Sodom. For Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there is 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou indeed sweep away and not forgive the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. That's twice it said. Shall not the judge of all the earth do justly? I'm going to stop right there, because that's all I want to bring out in that point. Now we know he goes down to 10. How do a man tell God what is his role? How do a man that's made, the creature made, tell the Creator who made him? This is your job description is a judge, and you're supposed to be a righteous judge. And that's far from you to be, and you're not. That's far from the concept of you being an unrighteous judge. So, when you read the text and look at it, the Creator is an investigator. He's going for information. Now, you know, if God is up in heaven and he hear it up there, you had to hear it down here. Have you heard it up there? And yet he comes down not for more information, could be to stimulate and get a talk out of Abraham, yes. But God allows us free will to say what we're willing to say, but there's always a reciprocal behind that, as you would say. And one of the things is that he let him know from the very beginning that he's going to investigate, have it investigated. We had a saying in BINAH King, condemnation without full investigation is a very bad policy. I said that in the past before. And one of the things is that the Creator don't need to investigate, because he knows the end of everything before it exists. But Abram did not consider that in his mind. He considered that, oh, these people, I know the story down there. I know they're rough down there. You heard it up there. I know what's going on over there. So you call God the judge, but not the investigator. That's one of the things that we often do amongst ourselves in various places. We're quickly to judge somebody without investigating and trying to gather information. We tend to judge them very quickly and not really knowing the person's essence or the situation in totality. And that's a lesson that we all should gain from it, because They're going to be measure for measure with Abraham later on with certain areas, which I'm going to touch, getting up to Chayei Sarah. But those are some of the things that we must consider going forward, is that the Creator let us know that you're going to investigate, not just go ahead and execute judgment. The Creator already said concerning the iniquity of the Amorites are not yet filled. They're already doing wrong, but they ain't doing enough wrong yet. And we got to always remember they ain't doing enough wrong yet before the Creator actually stepped in. So he's long suffering, but a lot of times we don't recognize it right away. And so now, could it be Abraham pleaded so hard on behalf of the people because he possibly could be partially responsible for bringing them back? He went to get Lot. Whatever prayer he had, we don't know. But we know he says something to the Creator alongside, I will not take anything for my personal self just to get my nephew back. So he disclosed that to the king of Solomon after he got everybody back from the war of the 4 kings and slaughtered the 4 kings. So now, when we think of that, at that particular junction of his life, could be, all right, I know how these people were, because the city was wicked from then, and they was captured. I went to get Lot, and I bring all the people back. And the king said, look, take the wealth and give me the people. And Abraham said, I will not even take a shoe latch. He lifted his hand up before God. So could that be the reason why he prayed so hard? Feeling partially responsible. That's something you could discuss backwards and forward in there, and see, with your teachers and your colleagues, and see what you come up with. All right. So much for that area there. All right. We'll deal with Lot. And we know that, he was the only one saved because God remembered Abraham. And Lot and his 2 daughters were saved. His wife turned back. Turn back for what? Look for, we figured the look back. So don't turn or look back. But she turned back. Turned back to do what? And said she wound up being a pillar of salt. So that's something to consider and question. With the catastrophe and the turmoil that happened, God said, I will not destroy the earth and all life with water anymore. Not that some people won't get caught in the flood, but the whole earth won't be. And here they see fire. So this is not that many generations from the Mabul. You figure Abraham is actually the 10th generation from Noah. So it's not that many generations that they're talking about. The earth was just making a recovery from the flood. So when we look at this situation there, Lot and his daughters in a cave, the daughters would say, our father's old. They thought the world was at the end. They thought they was doing something laudable. So they wind up getting their father drunk and lay with him. The oldest one the first night and the younger one the next night, and they both got pregnant. And one of the people, Ruth, actually comes through that line of Moab, who was actually the ancestor of not only David, but when we talk about the Messiah, she's also the ancestor of that guy too, because she married Boaz, which is one of David's great-grandfathers. So when we think about that, they had a laudable intention for the wrong thing. And how we know that it wasn't too accepted amongst most people in that area for a man to deal with his daughter. You know, that they had to get him drunk to do that. So we know automatically that certain conscious values or morals existed in that time. But they thinking, this is the end of the world. We got to keep life going. And we don't know how was the population going before the flood. We know people married their sisters. We don't know whether they married generational up and down, but we can only assume that happened as well, simply because we know Abraham married his sister, and we know that Moses' father married his aunt. And before certain laws was written down to say, okay, this is a holy nation. The things you used to do, we're not doing anymore from this point on. So when we think about the moral compass of certain things, we got to say, well, what point in time in integrity would it be a violation? Would it not be a violation? So these are some of the things when we get into the book, we got to look at it very clear, because now we look at it after the law is written down as opposed to what law is not written down. And when we read where Abraham commanded his house to do all the laws of God, it's all that God had him to do and have him to want to do. But certain laws, Passover, what Abraham got to do with that? Shavuot, dwelling in booths, what Abraham got to do with that? You know, Yom Kippur, what Abraham has to do with that? Because that comes about after the sin of the golden calf. So when we look at all that, you know, Abraham kept all the laws that was incumbent upon him at the time. Moses and Aaron is a product of something that the law prohibits later. So we got to always bear that in mind as we study in scriptures, and we look, you know, and we actually be very, very strict judgmental in some areas. All right, so to move forward just a little bit. Now we read about, as we're moving forward, you know, the episode. I want to just touch on the episode a little bit about let me see, let me skip here. All right, so we know. All right, so now I want to just bring out this part in the 21st chapter before we get into Chayei Sarah. In the 21st first chapter, in this you know, at the time when better yet, I like to just a little bit further go up in that. All right. All right, but talk about the birth of Asher in the 20, but I want to go just a little bit before that. In the 20th chapter, and it says that we know automatically, and I'm skipping quite a bit of stuff with Ishmael, you know, with Hagar, because how Mother Sarah dealt with Hagar. I'm just skipping with that for a minute. I will revisit it slightly, but not extensively. The 20th chapter, and Abraham journeyed from thence towards the land of the south, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur. And he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said, Sarah, his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream of the night. And he said, behold, thou shalt die, because the woman whom thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. Now Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, wilt thou slay even a righteous nation? Said he not himself unto me, she is my sister, and she even herself said, he is my brother. In the simplicity of my heart and the innocency of my hands have I done this. And God said unto him in the dream, yea, I know that in the simplicity of thy heart thou hast done this, and I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffer I thee not to touch her. All right, so in other words, it shows the integrity of an individual that's not even in this way of life. And then we'll visit that as we get into the story of Chayei Sarah. So Abimelech had a great integrity, and talk about how his nation has morals. So because a person is born into a certain family, as we're going to touch on in this particular portion, is that they don't necessarily have to follow in the footsteps of the whole family. Case in point, the very patriarch we're talking about now, Abraham. We find out later that his father built idols, and evidently must have worshipped certain idols on the other side. But that's what he did. We find that in the prophet Isaiah. So Abraham left from that situation. So now Abimelech did his investigation. He investigated and looked for information. We didn't find where the Pharaoh of Egypt looked for information. We didn't find where God even talked to the Pharaoh of Egypt when Abraham went down there. So however he figured it out, he figured it out. But, he restored a man his wife and escorted him out. Abimelech is even told that Abraham is a prophet and that Abraham must pray for him. So, but yet, when you get into the story, which I'm not going to get into now because that's last week's Sidra, that Abraham had misjudged, again, a situation. He misjudged a situation. And not that we're looking to point out all the faults of our great patriarchs, but we got to recognize that they are human beings with humans' weaknesses as well as human strength. So the weaknesses and stuff that they succumb to that's not according to the laws that we understand, we got to learn from them and avoid them as much as possible. And mark only the perfect individual, the perfect man. Do those things that's right. So that's why I talk about going to the rock from which was hewn and to the pit from which was dug. And it identifies the rock as Abraham and identifies the pit as Sarah. But each had their weaknesses. Sarah went a little bit overboard with Hagar because the angel said, God has seen your affliction. Talking to Hagar, the mother of Ishmael. So Sarah did overboard. Abraham avoided assisting in the situation. So we learned a few things from going on from there. Now, the last thing before I go into the Chayei Sarah is that when we talk about God want to prove Abraham with this great test of Isaac, and it came to pass after these things, in the 22nd chapter of Genesis, that God did prove Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, here am I. And he said, take now thy son, thy only son, whom thou lovest, even Isaac, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell thee of. I use the term Oland, which is often a burnt offering, but it just also means offer up, to go up. And Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his ass and took two of the young men with him and Isaac his son, and he cleaved the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place which God had told him. On the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. Which is interesting is that I've spoken in the past about it, about the lead up and the build up of this. So you might want to check some of those might have looked at the video before. When I spoke about that son, which one, the only son, only of who, that kind of build up. But what's interesting is that he gets up early in the morning, saddles on ass. That means he got servants, and he got a lot of servants. And and when he does all this at that time, he's traveling for 3 days. All right, you see a place of fall for 3 days. He took 2 other guys other than Isaac, so it's 4 people in all together. Abraham, Isaac, and 2 other unknown folks. We don't know who they are. Going with him. Why the other 2? I don't know. They got a lot of different tales behind it, but I'm not going into the tales. But you figure if you're going to do something like that, you can rationalize maybe if we're going to do it the way he think he's supposed to do it, we might have to hold Isaac down, because Isaac ain't no little boy anymore. He's a grown man, and we're going to deduce that from as we go into the Chayei Sarah. And it goes on to say, after he's seen 3 days, abide ye with the ass, I and the lad will go yonder, and we will worship and come back to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took in his hand the fire and the knife. Now Abraham got fire and he got the knife, but Isaac had the wood. And they went both of them together. So they both about moving together, no real controversy thus far. And no one mind. And Isaac spoke unto Abraham his father and said, my father. And he said, here am I, my son. And he said, behold, the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? In the 8th verse, and Abraham said, God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went both of them together. That's what Isaac thinking at that time, that they both will actually be carrying up, they both go get a lamb somewhere. The lamb must be up there. That's all right. If God provided. So it got to be a lamb that's not lame, crippled, or anything like that. So as we look, in 9th verse, and they came to the place which God had told him of, and Abraham built the altar there. So he had time to even build an altar, set it up, laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar. Now we don't read about the rope, but anyway, he bound him up upon the wood. Could he put him in a trance? We don't know. Some brothers say he bound him with some special words. I mean, they got all kinds of little stuff going on out there in reference on. He had knife, you had wood, you had fire, and he built an altar, which it could be a stone altar, just plain stone altar. That's okay, unhewn stone. That's okay, you can grab that up there. But you're going to take some binds or some regular rope and tie them down? We don't know. So guys make up a lot of stuff, say, how did he bind them? Did he where the rope come from? And all that kind of stuff. Could have been the binds that they used to bind them down. Some people might figure, hey, you must be able to hypnotize them and put them in hypnotic trance like them illusionists and magicians do or something like that. We don't, that's above my pay grade in that area there, but we stick with the text as it is. And then 10th verse, and Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called out unto him from out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou art a God-fearing man, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son Isaac. And Abraham called the name of the place Adon-Yireh. Now, that's Adonai Yireh. So we already know about the name, just to refer back to the young man that asked me a question earlier about the tetragrammaton. But there's other terms that Abraham would use, and he would use it, and you could look up the meaning of this particular word. As it is said unto this day, the mount where the Lord is seen, and the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham the second time out of heaven, and said, By myself have I sworn, said the Lord, because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gates of his enemies, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. That's our mission. Behold, because thou hast hearkened unto my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young man, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. So the day, it don't talk about Isaac in that place. The terrible experience for Isaac. And we're going to find out a couple of things later on. And then we got another episode going on in reference to the descendants. But before I go further, all right. The angel calls and speaks on his behalf, and speaking relating to the Creator. So one of the things we find out, the Creator never spoke to Abraham directly. It's angels speaking on behalf of the Creator after this incident. So some people would think that, Abraham had, one, it's nothing that the Creator don't know. That's number one. Two, the angel called out, not the Creator. The same angel speaking on behalf of the Creator. Abraham passed a test, but was it the best way to pass it? You plead for a people that deserve death. You plead for Ishmael. You pray for Abimelech. And yet, in 3 days, he never disclosed to your son that you are the sacrifice. You never even plead to say, is it another way, God, to handle this? Hence, as we go down to Chayei, we pick up another episode concerning this matter. But I'm just going to finish out this point here in the 20th verse of the 22nd chapter. And it came to pass after these things that was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she is also had borne children unto thy brother Nahor, Uz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Kesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jiblah, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rebekah rather. These 8 did Milcah bore to Nahor. So he's very fruitful. And Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Reumah, she also bore Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Maacah. All right, so he's very fruitful. He had a concubine, had children, and he had 8 by his wife. So 8 and 4 is 12. And now we're going to the life of Sarah. And I'm going to be a little brief. I probably have to finish up this later on a little bit. But one of the things it says, and the life of Sarah, Chayei Sarah, 107 and 20 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, the same as Hebron, in the land of Canaan. Kiriath Arba means a city of 4 that join together to form one combined city. Hence, Hebron means combine. That's what the word Hebron means. It means to combine. So it was called Kiriath. So let you know there was 4 cities combined into one, which is the word Hebron. So in Hebrew, Hebron. All right. So and it goes on to say, once it talk about the life. How is it talk so much about the life of Sarah when she dies? We don't read a whole lot concerning Sarah's life. But a life is so important that even the first woman God made, Eve, Mother Kawa, Eve, we don't read anything dedicated to her life. We don't read about how old she was when she passed on. All we know that she was the mother of all living and she had children. That's all we know. And Adam had children through her all them years. Now, what we fail to realize is that though we read about Lot when they entered the land of Canaan, that Sarah herself, we read about her later as being a relative and later on a wife. But it said they entered Canaan with all the soul they had gotten. That means that she did her part in contributing to the buildup and the mission of Abraham. It was Abraham's mission, but she contributed to the mission greatly because he was able to get some people. He was able to get some people. Now, what we find as we go deep into the story of the life of Sarah is that if she died at 127, that makes Isaac 37 years old. If we go by a chronological order of the chapter, this event taking place right away. Why she died, there's a lot of, Midrash tales concerning that, why she died. But pretty much that, it's right behind the episode of the son, Isaac, getting ready to be offered up and slaughtered by his father. If they ever talk about it, we know, I'm quite sure, I'm almost positive, pretty positive, though she is a first ride or die female. Mother Sarah was a ride or die female. She actually left with her husband, Abraham, went through the uncomfortable situations of posing as a single woman when she's married, jeopardizing her integrity to save the life of her husband. That's a ride or die. So if we talk about the first ride or die female in history, we got to say Mother Sarah was a ride or die female, as we say today. She was there for Abraham. Now, how much was Abraham there for her? We're going to see now that he realized how much she really meant in making of this great man. So they always have the saying that behind every great man is a great woman. Well, she stood behind him as a great woman. That's a legacy to all women to follow. So, and we talk about her life, and what's interesting, it goes on to say, and Abraham came to mourn for Sarah, and to weep for her. Coming from where? I come back. The last thing we read where he came from was offering up Isaac. That's the last thing we read. And he come back. We didn't read where Isaac coming back with him. Might need time to get himself together, get his head together, whatever the case is. And as we get read through this whole story, we didn't read about Isaac's participation at all in this area. But we know that he had to find out and know about it as we go into the story a little bit. And I'm gonna fast forward just a little bit more and just gloss over some stuff. And Abraham rose up from before his dead and spoke unto the children of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession for a burial place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. Now, everything going through concerning how we treat the dead in our culture, and plus more so by those that follow rabbinic tradition, everything is taken from this chapter. Everything. And so those that might be interested in finding the do's and the don'ts and the very format of how we take care and treat the dead amongst us and our people, they might do well to read some of the rabbinic views and teachings and halakhic views on burial. That's one of the things. In the ritual from morning, Shiva, to the Shalom, the 30-day period, to 11 months of, saying, Kaddish. But before that, the first 7 days, how strict it is. And we try to bury our dead immediately from this site. So this is one of the things here that's everything that's deal with burial of a person in our culture, and then those that follow more of a rabbinic line or traditional line, false rabbinically, they would take it from this particular chapter here, every little thing. So this is one of the things that I'm not going to be able to elaborate on because it's just too extensive. But those that's interested, just look it up. And it goes on to say that, he said, I'm a ger and wet toshav in Hebrew, a ger and wet toshav. So a ger, wet toshav is a stranger. A ger is a stranger, and toshav, I'm a settler. I'm just, I'm settling. I'm a settler with you. So now a ger, a stranger, I might be passing through. You look at me as that, and I know I'm not part of your nation, but also as a toshav, that means right then and there that I'm a settler here. So I'm employing both areas there in that sense, because now if you're a stranger, then what you need a burial place for? You here today, going tomorrow. If you're a settler, then okay, you're gonna be here for a while. You're trying to pick up roots right here. So that makes a difference. Ger first, toshav second, in that area. So that's something to think about as we go forward. And you want to bury in 6th verse. Hear us, my Lord. Thou art a mighty prince amongst us. In the choice of our sepulchres, bury thy dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his sepulchre, but thou mayest bury thy dead, but thou mayest bury thy dead. So they recognize that this is an important action. Before we get to the 7th verse, this is something very important. I know I ain't gonna get a chance to finish this, so I'm gonna have to pick up part of it next week. But this is very important, a very important action in that sense. So as we move forward, in this area. They said they know, he's a mighty prince. Say, Nasik Elohim, a mighty prince amongst them. Now, before he's a prophet, now he's a mighty prince. Why is that? It's simply because we know he had 318 men. We think of just the 318 men. If half of them had wives, then we're talking a great amount. Just on half of them that have wives here. As we look, so you figure, you're talking close to 400 some change, with the wives, and then if they had children, if they had 2 children apiece, you're talking close to 1,000 people that's traveling with Abraham at the time, our father Abraham at the time. So he got a serious squad, 318 men that he trained for war. Everybody's not warriors. So what about the ones that wasn't warriors? And what about if half of them was even married? Of the men, that's all men of war. And if they had like 2 children apiece. So when we think of Abraham, we only think of him as this small little family with a few servants. We don't think of him as an entourage of a metropolis of people, at least over 1,000 people traveling with this man and this woman for all those years. We don't think of him as such. But you're talking about 1,000 people or more easily, not counting Lot when they was together. When they first come down, they first come together. And then when they come out of Egypt, Lot having herdsmen, he's a big boss. He got a bunch of people. So Lot got servants and herd. Abraham got servants and herd. So if you got 1,000 people in herds, and Lot got 1,000 people in herds before they were separated, can you imagine how great, how populous they look? And that's why they say the Canaanites and the Perizzites in the land at the time. You're going to have herdsmen arguing. So when we think about Lot's herdsmen and we think about Abraham's herdsmen, sometimes we can't envision how big they were. So now when they separate from each other, you realize how big Abraham alone were just the numbers I throw out. And I'm not even doing great justice to it because I took half of the men of war and say they had a wife. I took, half of that, and the men of war, and to say that each woman had two children, and that's just the men of war. And we had people that was not warriors, and some might have had more children, and the ones that wasn't warriors had children. So can you imagine how much that was? And then we're talking about at this time, we're talking from 75 to 100. So 137. Because Sarah died at 127. Then Abraham's 137. So we're talking a lot of time, that you having people develop amongst Abraham's and then Sarah's household. That's a lot. And imagine how great the man was that he decided to entertain those guests himself personally right after the Brit Milah. So we can understand those levels of the patriarch. And as we go further, they buried, but but Abraham wanted like that. And he said, Abraham rose up and bowed down to the people of the land and to the children of the and he spoke unto them, saying, if it be your mind that I bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and entreat for me to Ephron, the son of Zahar, that he give me the cave of Machpelah, which is at the end of which is in the end of the field, his field, for the full price. Let him give it to me in the midst of you for possession of burying place. Now Ephron was sitting in the midst of the children of Het, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham, and the hearing of the children of Het, even all of that went in at the gate of the city, saying, Nay, my Lord, hear me. The field I give thee, and the cave that is therein I give thee, in the presence of the sons of my people I give I it thee, bury thy dead. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing here because I'm going to touch on one little thing that I got to get deep into, a little bit deep into next week. One of the things I'm going to focus on in this particular portion of Sarah, Chayei Sarah, is that we find here that Abraham asked for the cave at the end of the field. That's the cave to bury. I don't need the whole field. I just need that. The man offered the whole field with the cave to bury him. And he's sitting right there. So, one, you say, if God promised the land to Abraham's descendants, why would he want to buy anything? Because he don't own it then. And the thing is that he wants to be able to secure it, in the presence of those people that's occupying the land. So that's one reason that if I take something free is never free. That's number one. Number two is that if I take it because you offer it to me without spending for it and everything like that, you could do whatever you want, put whoever you want alongside that. And you might even put an idol up there in front of the cave. So all this, I need to secure that. I'm asking for it. And final analogy is that he brought the cave for 400 pieces of silver. All right, so now we know he brought the cave for 400 pieces of silver, to bury the dead, his dead. And if you look at all the process going, like I said again, it's all that process that he go and every little nuances is basically part of the burial rites rabbinically that's extrapolated from this particular portion. But burying is there for why he didn't think about that ahead of time. They know he's not going to live forever. They know the lamb's going to go to a seed. He didn't say God said this is my lamb in the future. He wanted to secure it. So now we have to show you how great it is that the greatness, Mother Sarah and her death, her life was so impactful that not only did Abraham decide to speak about it, eulogize her, but he cried later. Most people cry first, as I say often. And the cough in it is actually where she actually go ahead and it's written smaller than the word Boker. And you say, well, why didn't you use the first letter to make that small since he didn't cry as much instead of the letter Ka? And the way you write the word letter Kaf in Hebrew is a Kaf and a Kaf Sophie. I mean, a face Sophie, excuse me, a Kaf and a face Sophie, which is, so face 80 and Kaf is 20. 120, that's a unique number there. We talk about 100, let me see. Oh, I'm messing up here. 100 years old, sorry. 80 and 20 is 100. And that's when Isaac was born to Abraham, and when Abraham was 100. But it's other meanings as well. Sarah died at 127. The next lady we read about this over 127 provinces was Esther, in the book of Esther, when she got married to the king of Persia. She was over 127 provinces. There's so much in the story that I'm just glossing over, but I just want to point those little factors out as we move forward. And the longest part in here is that we find out that when Sarah's life is at the end, we find out about the women's lives matter much more in this particular story, because before she's marked off the scene and we read about her death, we read about a woman such as Rivka, already born, already established, already there. And Abraham decided to go ahead and establish another a wife, tried to procure not only a burial place for his wife, but after that, putting away his dead. Next thing is for the future, the wife for his son Isaac, who he almost thought he was going to slay. So he's looking for the future. So she's a bind for the past and the future of Abraham's life. She looked at as an extraordinary woman that and talk about how life impacted him, because and strangely enough, Abraham dies in the same sidra of Chayei Sarah as his wife. And the interesting point about it, and when we think about it, is that Abraham basically living 38 years after Sarah. So I want to get into some of the other stories when the unnamed servant winds up getting going to get a wife for Isaac. And which is interesting is that his name is not mentioned throughout the longest portions of Genesis, story in Genesis, about 105 verses is this particular portion. And that's the longest story in Genesis. And he's not named, but he goes get a wife for Isaac. And it's very interesting. There's a lot of subtle details behind it and interesting stories, which I'll do my best to highlight. But one thing going forward in the next couple of minutes, I'd like to say is that he made Abraham swear to get him Isaac a wife from his people. And when he swore to get a wife from his people over in the land that he's from, and there's a unique swear that he had, which I spoke about in the past. And this servant said, well, if the woman don't want to come, then he said he'd be free from the oath. But what's interesting, which I like to read and focus on, I'm going to get back to it next week, is that Abraham just wanted somebody from his people. He didn't give the criteria for this particular woman. And also, I want to bring out some of the spiritual characters of this unnamed servant. And they call him a Zaquin as well, in that sense. And I also want to focus on some of Abraham's next children that he has within this particular portion before he passed and his burial. So I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to get all the way through this at the point in time, but I figure I need to try to do some backtracking, highlight certain things, and then going forward, I will continue more so with procuring a wife for Isaac and going on to the very end of Abraham's life and his burial in this particular portion. As we get to Tulodotes, because there's so much things going on with the ages and the time frame, which Phineas I can tend to look at the numbers of the age and the time frame and what's going on for all these years. So with that, I hope you got some of what I said. I'll say Shalom Aleichem, Shabbat Shalom, and any mistakes from my own, and any questions, leave it in the comments.
Hallelujah, torah Nasik. So everyone out there, remember, leave your questions in the comment. Nasik will definitely come back to them and answer your questions. So very important. That's a very important part of this whole thing. Questions that you might have, just leave them in the comment. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And I pray that the Most High God be with you all. Shalom, shalom, and everyone have a good Shabbat rest. Hallelujah.
Let's get all his wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing, all praises to the Most High, his laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing, all praises to the Most High, his laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah.